people come to me and say, where do I start?
Tom Howard is an expert in the digitization of business processes and currently serves as vice president at Service Titan.
I've sold companies for 9 times, 10 times, 12 times EBITDA and made a great living doing it.
So essentially the role of a business broker is to help you ascertain, okay, well, what is the business worth, and then put it to market where there are potential buyers. Tommy, g'day, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
Glad
to be back.
I think this is probably the first time in over 450 odd episodes that I'm ever going to say welcome back to episode 1.
Gosh, we're a little off track on the last one.
For you viewers that didn't hear the first episode I did with Tom, I thoroughly encourage you to go check that out, because we went off on a massive tangent to the point where we didn't even talk about what we were going to talk about. So now we're here to talk about that. But in that first episode, we were talking about actually, Tom, do you want to give a bit of a recap on what that first episode is, just to give?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about, we want to talk about selling your business and what it takes to get there. And immediately Matt said, look, like, what's your growth rate been like? And I talked about my growth rate, and we grew. My company in Fresno was at 1.6 million in revenue, and this year it'll clear 100 million in revenue. And that's over about 10 years, 12 years actually. And he said, oh my gosh, can we do that here? And how do you manage the logistics of hiring the people and the marketing, everything else? And can we do that in Australia? And I said, yeah, we can. I mean, you actually have markets that are bigger than my market that I have in California by far. My market in California only has 1 million people in my area. Anyway, we talked about all the things that you would need to do in order to, not all of them, but a lot of things you need to do to grow and scale your company at that size. And so we're coming back now to talk about selling your business and what the process was. And that was the original intent of the first episode. But I got to tell you, Matt, I mean, when people come to me and say, where do I start? There's a few things to know. Is that one is that figuring out the value of business. We talked in the last episode about multiplier of EBITDA. And EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. It's basically your net profit before you pay taxes and before you depreciate your assets. It should be about the bottom line on your income statement. And in Australia right now, they're paying 3 times, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times profit, depending on how big you are. As you get bigger, they pay a bigger multiple because it's a little less risky for an investor. And these investors are coming to Australia now because they bought up most everything in the US. And so if you really want to get part of that gold rush, which I've been part of it, I've sold companies for 9 times, 10 times, 12 times EBITDA, and made a great living doing it. And those things at some point will come there. Right now, if you're in Australia and you get like a 4 or 5 times profit, you're doing amazingly well. And that's really good. So you might look at that. But first thing to do is start looking at how much your business is worth. And so the first thing I do is start talking to a broker. There's people out there that, sell these businesses for a living, and they can start giving you ideas of how much it's going to be worth and how to sell it. And they know who the people to talk to sell that. Now in the US, there's several of these that just specialize in the trades. In Australia, I haven't seen them there yet. So there are generic business brokers that will do this.
And I think that's the problem, like I've had fucking horror stories from people dealing with just horrendously bad business brokers.
Yeah. If you look at, like, in the United States, there's a few for the small businesses that are somewhere in like the $1 million to $2 million of profit range. There's a company called SF&P Advisors, 3 million in profit, 4 million in profit. SF&P Advisors, they charge, some percentage points for their selling. They charge a little bit more in percentage points because the business is smaller. But they do it over and over and over again. And they might be able to help. There's companies, brokers that are bigger. There's Piper Sandler, who's on the really big side. There's a company that,
well, we don't really need to name drop, I suppose, but I'm I'm getting at is I think a lot of people have been down this path and they've been burned, or they've just had a shady, shady experience with someone who doesn't really know what the fuck they're doing.
I'm just trying to give you a few that like might, but the other one I got to mention is League Park, because I've used it before, but there's several. I have no tie to any of them, so I don't get a commission for sending them sending you their way, but just want to tell you that they're out there, that
Yeah.
they just focus on the trades.
So essentially,
Um,
the role of a business broker is to help you ascertain, okay, well, what is the business worth, and then put it to market where there are potential buyers,
yes, correct.
and they
And
typically get paid on
a
is it a flat
percentage of the
rate?
sale.
Percentage of the sale? Okay.
Yeah. So they almost all exclusively charge a percentage of whatever you sell it for. So their job is to get you the highest price possible.
And when you sell it,
And
it could be sold in many different ways. It could be an upfront pay, upfront figure. It could be staggered. It could be a number of things. Like how do they derive?
100%. A lot of them will come in and they'll say, okay, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars now. And next year, depending on what your profit is, we're going to give you, you know, Y amount of dollars if you hit, um, 2 million in profit, and we'll give you Z amount of dollars if you hit 3 million in profit. So what we do on those is we call them earnouts.
Right.
So they're trying to reduce their risk by saying, okay, if you keep growing this company and stick on and help out with it, then we're going to pay you some. A lot of them also do deals where they talk about rolling equity, where what that means is they say, okay, your business is worth $10 million. We'll give you $7 million up front and $3 million worth of equity in our business. And at that point, I do that a lot in the US. Most of them do that because it gives you an incentive to stick around and help, because then you're providing value to that business in the future. And they might buy 10 businesses in that area, but you've got a piece of the whole thing. And when it sells again, that 3 million in equity in most cases is usually worth more than the 7 that you got up front. And so you get another bite at the apple, so to speak. And so a lot of people
They're
look at
getting an
that.
equity stake in sort of the umbrella business, not just the one they're selling. Is that the idea?
Correct.
Got
Yeah,
it.
correct. That's how almost all of them work.
Mm-hmm.
And it really gives you a reason to try to, not if they're going to buying 10 plumbing companies, so to speak, let's just say you're one of those 10 and you roll equity. Now you got a piece of all 10.
Right.
And so you have an incentive to go around and help your buddies who are the other companies that they bought together to make a more solid foundation that grows together.
Mm-hmm.
And it builds a lot of camaraderie and excitement about growing the business. So it's that's one of the things that I recommend. And the other piece is that, a lot of people, they don't know their financials very well or something like that. I highly recommend getting a third-party accounting firm involved. And we call this quality of earnings. Now, what we do in those cases is we go to them and say, okay, look, I talked to the broker. They think I should sell for this much, and they looked at my financials. They look like they're about to like this. I want to clean up all my financials though. And so you bring that broker in.
Tom, when you say a third-party accounting firm, are you saying aside from your actual accountant?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And because you don't know, that third-party accounting firm, their job is to just clean up your books and make sure everything's verified.
Right.
And if you look up quality of earnings online or something like that, third parties, it costs you some money to do it, but they're going to go through it and verify. They're going to check all your bank transactions, your accounting transactions, and verify that your company is clean. And what happens when you do that is that when you go to sell it, you don't get any surprises. And the worst thing you can have happen is when you go sell your business is you get surprised on the back end and say, oh, by the way, your profit isn't as high as we thought it was because your accountant made a mistake on this or didn't know this or blah, blah, blah. And so they fix those things, and it's low stress at this point because you're paying them to do it. So when they find errors and things like that, who cares? Let's just fix it before we go to sell. And we clean that up. So
what are some of those typical errors they do unfold?
They'll look at things like, let's just say that your vendor sent you a bill for $100,000 and they sent it in the month of December, but then they sent you another bill for $300,000 in January. Well, part of that $300,000 bill was actually for December, but they didn't get it to you until January, and your accountant recorded it in January. Well, that is going to decrease your net profit from the year before because the expense was incurred in December. It's just your vendor didn't get it to you in time, and your accountant didn't know to accrue it for the proper month. So there's going to be a lot of stuff like that they're cleaning up and verifying everything. Because what happens is you typically go to market and you've got your clean financials and your broker takes it to market. In the US, there's 71 or 72 private equity companies fighting for these. So there's a lot of interest really fast, typically right now. That bubble may burst in the future, but I don't know. Anyway, and then they turn around and come, okay, we go to market, they take a look at it, and then a couple of these companies come to give you an offer. And they put an offer on the table and say, look, we're willing to pay X amount of dollars for your business based on your financials. And you say, okay, now that doesn't mean that the next day they just hand you a check. What it means is they sign what's called a letter of intent, that I intend to buy your business for this much. And then in the letter of intent, it has a period, kind of like an escrow period, that's your due diligence period. So let's say they sign that deal in July. Well, they're going to say, we plan to close in October. And what that means is they start due diligence, which that's when they start inspecting your whole business and verify that everything's accurate and everything's correct and everything else. And if they've got $5 million, $10 million, $20 million on the line, they're going to spend a lot of money making sure that all these things are accurate. And so they go through it all and make sure everything's clean and blah, blah, all that. Well, if you've already had your quality of earnings statement done, then you've already gone through and verified that everything's correct. And now they're just doing it on their own. And so it's a lot less stressful for you. But what you don't want is they get into their due diligence and they say, oh my gosh, we found all these errors and your profit isn't as high as you thought it was. And we can't pay you X dollars. We have to shave off $2 million because your numbers are off.
Right. So
and you don't want that to happen.
Clean everything up first.
Yeah. You clean everything up first. You get it lined up, pay the money to the third-party accounting firm to verify it. And if the third-party accounting firm comes back and says, hey, your profit isn't what you thought it was, maybe that's the time to stop. It's fine. You can tell the broker, I want to hold off for a year and I want to fix this.
Yeah.
And I want to get my profit higher. I want to come back on the market later. Totally fine. At that point, no one cares. The problem becomes once you sign that letter of intent, that tells them, hey, I'm ready to go. And then they come back and say it's wrong. And now you try to stop the sale. You fall out of diligence. It's like a black mark on you. It tells all the other investors, hey, Tom doesn't know what he's doing. He's not serious. His accounting records aren't accurate. You probably shouldn't deal with him in the future. He's going to fall out of diligence when you go to sell. And so this whole process, from beginning to end, it can take as little as 4 months. In big companies, it takes me about a year. When I sold my Vegas company, we had $6 million in profit, and we sold. I said in the last episode, I can't say what it sold for, but it was more than $50 million US. And I only owned it for 16 months. But 7 or 8 months into that process, I started getting the quality of earnings going. I started going through the process and getting ready for sale, and working with the people I need to in order to get to where I need to be. And so that process took me. We started in July, and we closed in April. So that's 9 months of going.
Mm-hmm. And so what is will it be the broker when they place the market up for sale that will attract private equity firms in your instance?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that a conversation of business size, the difference between a private equity firm being interested in buying your business as opposed to just like someone who wants to buy a business and bolt it onto theirs?
Sure. And your broker's going to help you with that. That's their job. Their job is to market it out to the best buyer possible. What they will tell you is private equity firms are not going to be interested for a company that has a very small EBITDA, like let's say $100,000 of EBITDA of profit. But they are going to be interested at higher levels. It doesn't mean you can't sell your business that's $100,000 of EBITDA. It's just it's probably going to sell it to your competitor or sell it to someone that just wants to get into the trades and get going.
And so a private equity company, if they were to purchase your business, they're purchasing it with the expectation they're going to be able to take that business and grow it. And,
correct.
And they will do that by deploying their own team and their own systems that they think they're going to be able to do it better than you. Is that the idea?
In many cases, many of them want you to stick around and help out so that you get a salary, you get some kind of bonus if you grow it and help grow it with them. And
is it like a
but growth is not the only thing that they want though. And I can explain that. It's like, what?
So it's like a capital investment kind of. They're like, right, we'll give you the money that you need in order.
They're going to give you the money. And they might want to help you with certain things. Like maybe they have a better way of marketing. Maybe they have a better way of, getting buying power because maybe they bought 8 other companies. So now all of a sudden, you as a group have stronger buying power and get lower prices on your cost of materials. Maybe they have access to, data that you don't have. Maybe, a lot of them have better financial teams than you would normally have on your end. And so a lot of them they know you've already got a fire burning. They just want to pour gasoline on that fire and blow it up. And, but they're not just looking for growth in their company. Now, remember what I said earlier is that if you're a bigger company, you get a higher multiple, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just say that your company is kind of small and you're going to get 3 times profit for your company. Well, these private equity firms, they know that if they let's just say that you only had, I don't know, $500,000 in profit, and they're willing to pay 2 times, let's say, on profit. So it's $1 million for that $500,000 in profit. They know that if they get you to 3 million in profit, that they can get, 6 times profit. Well, they don't have to increase your profit. They can just go get a bunch of other companies at 2 times profit to put it together to equal $3 million in profit, and then turn around and sell that for 6. So in that case, if you didn't even grow your profit, they're still going to get double their money on their investment because they got more companies together to make it more solid and sell it as a package. And what we call that is arbitrage. So it's a way that they make a lot of money by consolidating companies and putting them into one pot.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and you see businesses do that on smaller scales, right? So they're just kind of doing it more on a macro scale.
Correct. And they'll do it in the US, they'll buy companies at $20 million in profit and put them together with other companies that are
right
20, 30, 50. And then all of a sudden, you got companies that are turning $100 million in bottom line profit, $200 million in bottom line profit. And those companies get gigantic multiples.
Right. And so with the private equity, I mean, obviously they're acquiring the team, the system, the model. What does that look like for the owner who just wants to get the fuck out of there?
Yeah. What they're going to do with that owner, in that case, you just need to be upfront with them in the beginning and say, hey, I just want to get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. They'll say, oh, great. Well, we've got another company in your area that we're buying that has an owner that wants to stick around. We're going to pull your company in and that company together. And then that one owner is going to oversee all of it and you can go. In those cases, it's fine. What?
Is there a lot of fat trimming in these scenarios? Like, I mean, obviously, if you're a business and you're buying a business down the road, you're not going to need half their management team because you've got that.
Correct.
So obviously there. But then you obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but you do need the team in order to make it work.
In this case, I tell people, look, like money's not everything. And so some of them are going to come and say, well, I don't like this guy. I don't like that guy. That's fine. You don't have to pick every person that gives you an offer. You don't have to say yes to. So what I had in Las Vegas, I had 5 offers, 4 that were serious. And then out of that, we picked the top 3. And then I went to the staff that was going to stay there because I wasn't staying and said, you guys pick the one that you like out of the top 3.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't pick the highest offer. And because they didn't pick the highest offer, it cost me $2 million in personal income.
So why?
Because
what were they basing that on then?
Because they wanted to pick the guy, and they did. Service Champions was the company that bought us, and they have done a great job. They wanted to pick the company that they felt like had a lot of experience, that knew what they were doing in the trades, that was going to respect them and that kind of stuff. And so they picked that company. The other one was brand new to the trades, didn't know anything about the trades. They were looking to get into the trades, didn't have a plan. And they just said, you're not the one for us. And so, like I said, it cost me $2 million of personal income to take the cheaper offer, but they took it. It was the second highest offer. And I said, that's fine. And so in that case, they weren't doing a lot of fat trimming, but there's some times where you're going to sell your business and you're okay with them doing the fat trimming. And there's going to be some times where you don't want that to happen. So you might have to take a different offer that maybe isn't quite as high because they're not going to trim the fat. Mm-hmm. It just depends, on what your personal preference is.
Yeah, got it. Great.
So.
Interesting. All right. Well, that's been a good chat. I hope you guys learned something from that. I mean, I guess takeaways for me is just make sure you have your books and stuff all cleaned up before you want to start the process, because it will have to happen at one point or another.
And just hire somebody to do it. Having your brother, your cousin, your sister, your wife, whatever. It's just hire somebody that's a professional. This is all they do, and make sure it's clean. It's just worth it. It's worth every penny. And if you can't afford it, raise your prices so you can, because it's a legitimate business expense.
Tom, we have a few following episodes. There's one on succession planning. There's going to be one on how to grow your business for a potential sale and retain the profit. And the final one we're going to be doing, well, I say that, but who knows what's going to happen between you and me. We're going to talk about pay and incentive plans. So let's wrap this episode up, and we'll come back with the next episodes where we're going to dive more into those topics. If you guys want to get hold of Tom in any way, including links to the show notes and all that his podcast and that kind of stuff, head across to thesideshow.com, search Tom Howard, and all of his links to his epic podcasts and whatever is all going to be a website. Is all going to be over there. howarddeals.com for you guys that are too impatient to wait for that. Anything else, Tommy?
No, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, mate, thanks so much for your time. A great episode there. And I look forward to chatting to you, listeners and viewers, in the following episode. Ciao. New Zealand-based home renovation company, 6,593% ROAS. Sydney-based solar company, 2,700% ROAS. Hunter region-based bathroom renovation company, 5,616% ROAS. Melbourne-based building company, 13,182% return on ad spend. Adelaide-based solar company, 2,881% return on ad spend. Guys, the list goes on and on. If you're a trade-based business and you work with projects like roofing, solar, bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, anything like that, head across to tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Book in a conversation. It is game changing.